Hello, Closet Busters. It is Coming Out Coach Rick, and today we're doing another one of our episodes that I called the Truth-tinis. These are those delicious little martinis for your life that kind of help you get through to your truth so that you can really step out of the closets of your life feeling free from those yucky feelings of guilt and shame and not good enough. So these shortened little versions of the Coming Out Lounge are really designed to be quick little shots of wisdom, advice, insights, and inspiration to help you step out, step up, and step into living your most powerful truth, being exactly who you're meant to be. And today I thought I'd bring somebody on for our Truth-tini that I met it's only been a few weeks ago that I met him, and really love this young man's energy, and I love what he's doing in the world. And he's got a really good story about really taking your powerful step to be yourself. But we're going to talk a little bit today about religion and standing in your truth and really going up against those people who are going to say, no, you can't be that way. So I'm going to bring you my friend Philip Bondi onto the Coming Out Lounge Truth-tinis, and we're going to talk a little bit about all that stuff. He's a personal trainer and a transformation coach. So Philip, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have you here because, when we met a few weeks ago, I don't know, we just kind of seemed to have bonded and we really kind of got each other, and then we spent a little bit of time together. And one of the things that really stuck out for me when we met was your own journey coming out of the closet and coming into grips with, your religious faith and the things you'd been raised and told. So let's kind of dive in there. You were raised Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was born into that faith, grew up in it, was baptized, I think, at age 12, I want to say.
Okay.
So that was my background before coming out.
Yeah. So I know this, having worked with tons of people that have come through or continue to go through our coming out journeys, that this coming to terms with how we've been raised in our religious beliefs and our faith systems, that it can be personally hard, as well as it can be really hard dealing with those who have brought us into those faiths when they realize we're gay or bisexual or transgender, whatever it may be. Suddenly, those forces become very strong in saying that we can't do it. So kind of take us just on a little bit of a journey of what really went on for you as you finally went to mom and dad and said, this is who I am, and you went through and you reconciled your own belief in faith. Just give us kind of a little quick journey about that.
Well, I think for 20 years of my life, I was in a state of denial because I think I wasn't really awakened to who I was as a person, and I think I had enough around me to distract me that it wasn't until I really came to grips with the fact that I wasn't happy that that's when everything kind of shifted and turned. Mm-hmm. And really the curiosity of what it would be like to be a gay man is what really gave me the confidence to finally be okay with who I was. That being said, after coming out, I came out at 20 years old. After coming out, there were still so many months and years of self-hate and feelings of I'm not good enough that were just really ingrained in my mind from my religious beliefs. Because I grew up to believe that anything that goes against the faith that I was brought up in is wicked and from the devil. So although I knew from a logical standpoint that wasn't necessarily true, and it definitely wasn't true in my case, from the emotional standpoint, I still had the emotional feelings of self-hate and feeling like I'm doing something bad. So that was, I think, the largest struggle for me upon coming out. I'd say the second most difficult thing was learning to leave behind what I was so used to and what I thought made me happy, and really have to learn not only what makes me happy going forward, but also what's going to be healthy for me to be around, and really creating a new community, which I think was the second most challenging thing, was leaving friends, family, people that I'd had in my life since I was a young child, and realizing that those weren't healthy relationships. Although they were great relationships, they weren't healthy, and they aren't going to serve me well going forward. So learning to be more perceptive and find a new social network to create around me and create my own support system, that was also a big challenge.
Well, you brought up some really key points here. Number one, the walking away from the self-hate. This is the self-hate, the shame, the guilt, because they kind of all seem to go hand in hand, and I'm glad you started with that, because this is one of the most important things I would love the listeners to really get is self-hate doesn't get us anywhere. Whether it's self-hate because you're gay or fat, or you think you're ugly, or
Right.
your ass doesn't look good in that pair of jeans, whatever it is, we all do this because we hate on ourselves. And when we quit doing that, that's kind of not even just kind of when the doors start to open. When we can stop the self-hate, we really step into self-power, a lot of personal empowerment. And the other piece you brought up that I thought was so very powerful was this recognizing I'm going to have to let go. I'm going to have to let go and surrender that some of what I've known isn't serving me well. In fact, it's kind of ironic that you brought that up. I was out for my walk this morning down at the park, and there was a car parked there, and the license plate said, "Let it go." It was LET, go. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. Just let it go. So there's one of those divine moments that, things show up just when you need them to show up. But
Right.
this letting go is really a key piece, because it's gonna be difficult, number one, because we've got to unwind and let go of what we know, number one. Secondly, we've got to let go of probably some people in our lives that aren't going to serve us in the way that helps us be healthy, functioning, happy, joyful human beings in the world. So I know that was a fairly big piece of your journey, was letting go of some of these people.
Right. Yeah, it was. I think the hardest part too is you get in this mindset that everybody who you grew up with and knew for such a long time really has your best interests at heart. And in their heads, they do. They think that they do have my best interests at heart, but really, you are your own barometer of what's right and wrong for your own life. You're the expert in your own life. And so other people can have this intention of, taking care of you and making sure your needs are met. But really, you have to ask yourself, are these people really wanting what's best for me? And for me, if someone who doesn't want me to be who I am because it doesn't serve their own selfish religious purposes, I don't feel that's putting my best needs, forward. Really, that's putting their best needs forward and them telling me that it's for my own benefit.
Right.
So I think that was really, really difficult. Another thing that's just hard is learning to, and I don't want to say giving up hope, but I think learning to direct your focus towards the future and moving forward, I think was really difficult. I kept hanging on to this hope and feeling that maybe one day it's all going to get better and change. And not that I want to tell people to be negative, because that's not really what I think you should be doing. I think really it's they might come around, they might not. And sitting around and waiting for that to happen is counterproductive. And it's also, to a certain extent, not letting go and moving forward. It's still waiting in this kind of, I call it like lifestyle purgatory, where you're
Right.
not really like doing you, and you're not really, doing what makes you happy, but you're also not doing what makes them happy. And you're just kind of waiting around to see like what sticks. And that's really the worst place to be. You don't want to be there. You want to be doing what makes you happy, moving forward, making friends, meeting new people, creating your own family. And then, if that other side of your life wants to have a part of that, that choice is on them. That's not a choice or responsibility you should be taking on yourself. And I think that was an epiphany for me, that it's like, this is on them. This is nothing that I've done wrong. This is nothing that I can change.
Yep.
So, really that was the key to letting go, is realizing that you can't control what other people do by your actions or by your words. They have to be the ones that say, look, for instance, my parents, have to decide, I want to be part of my son's life.
Yep.
There's nothing I can do at this point to get that to happen. That's on them. So I think what I could tell the listeners at home would be to, if you're experiencing some resistance from your family and friends based upon you being gay or coming out, or even coming out as transgender or whatever, don't take on their actions as your responsibility, and don't blame yourself for what they're doing. Focus more on just staying true to yourself and showing them through your actions that you are okay with who you are, and that's going to be the most powerful message that's going to get across to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there, because it aligns so much with one of my principles that I always say, which is I'm no longer responsible for making you feel comfortable with me.
Right, exactly.
It's not my responsibility. I have to be me, and if you can't be comfortable with me, who I am in my world, in my life, I don't know what I can do to really help you get comfortable with that. Exactly. The only thing I can do is become the same way you want me to be, and then I'm helping you by, okay, I'm going to get on the comfy couch of sameness, and now you're happy, but I'm not. And this isn't something that any of us are doing to say, screw you. It's, I have to be happy in me. Right. And this is why so many young people, or not even just young people, so many people go down the road of trying to come out and be who they are, and then they end up committing suicides because the pressure has become too great to continue to conform. So the other thing that I also sensed when you said that, and it's interesting, I don't remember where I was reading this the other day. I think it may have been in, I'm reading Oprah's book, This I Know For Sure, and there was a quote by a doctor that had been on her show who was working with a mother whose son was really just young 3-year-old, just wouldn't go to sleep, always was demanding of her time and everything. And they showed a clip. They talk about showing a clip of, trying to get the kid to go to bed at night. And as soon as she got him into bed and headed to her bedroom, he'd basically be back in her bed before she could even get to the bedroom. And this behavior was just a consistent pattern with this little boy. And the doctor, when the clip got done, he turned to her and he said, "Nothing happens until you decide." And that's all he said. And I thought that's real. Those words are so powerful, because nothing will happen for any of us until we decide what we're going to make happen. If you're going to decide that you're going to release those people who are saying you can't be who you are, nothing's going to happen until you make that decision to say, I no longer can let you be this way in my life. Right. It all comes down to a decision that we all make. So.
And also, don't let them control your feelings. Don't let their ignorance and lack of comfort with who you are lead you to be unhappy. That you're giving them all the power, and nothing's going to change if that happens, because they're in a position of strength. So you have to remove that position of strength and say you don't have to say it, but you're essentially saying it through your actions, that you don't have control over my life anymore. And that was, I think, the hardest thing for my parents, is that even as I came out, they were grasping for control. Because when I finally came out and told them that I was going to be leaving the house, there was like a month's time. Well, it was supposed to be a month. It ended up only being about 3 weeks, where I didn't care anymore. I mean, essentially, any rule they had, any thing that I was supposed to abide by, I wasn't abiding by anymore, because they didn't have control. I knew it, and they knew it. And so, sitting me down at a table with my finances, saying that I'm never going to make it financially, and telling me that I'm going to get AIDS and die, is just their way of trying to grasp at control. So, but what's the most empowering feeling, and I hope that a lot of your listeners can have a chance to experience this, is just that final realization that they don't have the control. And once they know that, you both are actually happier, both sides, because they're not reaching for you, trying to control your life, and you're not sitting there trying to fight them tooth and nail the whole time. You're just saying, look, this is me, this is my life, and no longer will I let your actions control how I feel. And it's not perfect. I mean, there's still days where I still have bad days where I really miss my parents. I still have days where I miss those people. I still have days where I don't feel great. There's days I don't like myself. But essentially, you have to learn to, I call it the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, you need to learn to love yourself and move forward. And then that 10% where you don't feel good will take care of itself. So I think that's something that I think the listeners need to hear too, is, just make sure that you are who you are, and that you stick by yourself and feel good about who you are the majority of the time, and then don't sweat the times where you don't feel that way, because that's just your brain doubting itself.
Yeah, that's true. And I love the 90-10 rule. That's really cool. And the thing, going back a little bit to the control thing, because this is a two-way street. I know for me, when I came out, then as my parents tried to make me embrace their beliefs and try to believe that this could be fixed and all this sort of stuff, I started trying just as hard to make them believe that they needed to understand me. And so it became a controlling fight, both directions. And when we release control And we say, okay, I get your point of view. I'm not going to say I agree with it, but you're right to your point of view. You are human. You get to believe what you. Yeah, you're more entitled to those thoughts than anybody. But when we relinquish control, that we have to make somebody believe and love us the way we want, it becomes much easier. And I want to make sure everybody really gets that. It becomes much easier. Your life begins to move. Everything begins to come easier. So we're about to wrap up here, but I want to do one thing that I usually try to do in these little short clips here is I want you to just dole out one quick piece of advice that you would give anybody who's in this journey right now, trying to really step into being themselves.
I would say don't fight the process. I think so often, and I know this was true for me, is I had this idea in my head of what my life looked like. And then even after coming out, I had an idea of what my life would look like after coming out and what I considered to be a normal coming out process and what I considered to be a normal gay life. And I think what life has told me is that all my expectations were wrong, and that's okay. So for so long I fought that, trying to create what I thought was correct and what I thought was right.
Yep.
And when I finally stopped fighting the process and let the process just happen, the things I learned about myself and I learned about life are lessons that you can't buy, you can't get them at school, you can't go to college and learn them. And so I think what I could tell all your listeners is just don't fight the process. Let your coming out experience be what it is, and don't fight it, and trust that the process you're going through, whether it's uncomfortable, painful, hard, saddening, whatever it is, it's teaching you something.
Absolutely.
So listen to the process and listen to what it's trying to teach you and learn from it. I think you'll save yourself so much time in the long run about learning who you are and about yourself and about life.
I have to say, this young man has some really good stuff to teach people, and that's why he's doing phenomenal work with his personal training and transformational coach work. And Philip, I just got to say, I love you, man. I love that you gave me some time today to just have this quick little interview. And of course, I'm going to have you back for one of the full episodes one of these days. But thanks so much for being here, buddy. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with our listeners. And for the listeners, just remember, it's always up to you. You get to choose how you step out, step up, and step into living your powerful truth each and every day. Until next time, this is Coming Out Coach Rick, and have a good one.